Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to talk about the 1972 science fiction film Silent Running, which starred Bruce Dern, and it was directed by Douglas Trumbull, who was a real innovator with special effects, visual effects. Had worked with Stanley Kubrick on 2001, worked on the Andromeda Strain the year before, and would, as the years went on, would become a real innovator with the use of special effects in science fiction movies. So this film is one of the first ecologically themed science fiction films that we would begin to see more of in the 1970s. The first Earth Day was in 1970, and there was this growing cultural concern about pollution, about clean air, about the use of pesticides. The Rachel Carson book, Silent Spring, had been published in the early 1960s, one of the landmark books that maybe started the modern environmental movement as we know it. But we were starting to see, the EPA was started, the Environmental Protection Agency, but a growing cultural reckoning with the environment. Some of this, certainly the counterculture of the 60s, was also a part of this as well, and this movie runs on that theme as well of environmentalism and counterculture. So this movie is set in the I guess in the far future, you might say, and we're on a spaceship, a cargo ship, where there's a small crew of four people, and there are geodesic domes that serve as greenhouses on the ship. The geodesic domes, famously invented by Buckminster Fuller, I believe, which were those were very much in vogue in the 60s and 70s, and you'll still see those today. But the idea was that in this movie, the earth has become so polluted, the air has become so filthy that they need they need this to preserve vegetation on spaceships. Hopefully, they can then come back to Earth and restart vegetation on the Earth. That's the basic plan, the setup for this movie. So, Bruce Dern, in one of his first starring roles, I believe, he was a well known character actor, appeared in many Roger Corman movies, many westerns. I'm sure he did hundreds of guest shots on TV, but this was his first movie he starred in, and it's really a one-man show where most of the film were with Dern. There's also robots or drones aboard this ship that he interacts with a lot as well in this movie. So as the plot gets going, the ship is told that they are to jettison their greenhouses and get rid of them and return to Earth. Being the botanist on the cargo ship, Bruce Dern is horrified by this news. His other crewmates he doesn't really get along with. They're like, whatever, we don't care. They're just getting ready to do it. And then the story turns where Dern decides he is going to preserve the greenhouses, gets into a fight with one of the crew members and kills, and then kind of is responsible for the deaths of the others on the crew as well. So and then he is determined to they're around Saturn. He's determined to make a run through Saturn and hopefully hide what he's done and preserve what he has in his ship, the the his greenhouses, and there's animals and nature, and to save all that. He runs into more complications where things start to die in the greenhouse. He is injured. He does establish a relationship with the robots. And that's kind of where the story goes. This is really a tragic science fiction film in a lot of ways, and it's melancholy throughout. There's this sense of at least human beings no longer care anymore about what they've done to the earth. But even Bruce Stern is willing to resort to violence to do what he sees as the right thing. Is one of the ethical things that happening in this story as well. This film is different in the regard that the robots in this movie, They're actually very interesting characters if you see their designs. I don't, yeah, they're on the back here, but they real people were operating these robots, kind of boxy robots that have these short little legs, and some I believe George Lucas has said R2D2 was definitely inspired by the drones in this movie, who, like I said, are there to help. At one point, they perform surgery, they repair Bruce Dern's leg, or Lowell, the name of his character, and they do. And ultimately, by the end of the movie, the real hope is with the robots who are put in charge of preserving the greenhouse. So in this way, in a lot of science fiction, the robots are often villains, but here they're not. They're actually helpful and do a lot more to help than the humans actually do. The spaceships in the film, you can see like proto Star Wars effects in this movie, especially on the run through Saturn. The use of miniatures in this movie is really interesting, really sophisticated filmmaking in that regard. There's a great making of feature on this Blu-ray. How part of the movie was filmed on a battleship, on an old battleship. The sets were impressive throughout throughout the film as well. Um, and there's music. The score is good. Joan Baez contributes a few songs to the score. Some very 1970s folk music as well. We get in the movie, but yeah, it's the story itself is it's not an epic story or anything. It's a very simple story, but I think the emotional power of the story builds as we move through it, and especially Bruce Dern, who in the commentary track talks about one of his most acting moments he's proudest of is his final interaction with the robots. He affectionately names Huey, Dewey, and Louie. So the emotional arc of this movie really builds to a kind of a melancholy conclusion in its own way. Yeah, and the making of feature as well. It was made as they were shooting the film, and you get a sense of the hard work that went into making this movie. They talked to the editor, to the cinematographer, and just how the special effects were difficult to do, getting the performances were difficult, working with the people operating the robots was a challenge. So there was a really challenging movie to make, but it looks really fantastic on this Blu-ray. Really looks good. So yeah, Silent Running, it's kind of become a cult movie in its own way, and yeah, definitely iconic movie of the 1970s, 70s science fiction anyway. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye.